This economy needs something different. The business needs to be different. We all need to be different. We can't do it the way we've always done it. It's not efficient. You just said we're not providing the access to capital we need to be providing. So the way we've been doing it, guess what? Hasn't been good enough. So we're at a point right now where all of us, me included, I am constantly thinking about how can I be better today? How could I do things differently today? Because the way it worked in the 90s, it's not good enough anymore. And so we are all forced. The good thing about when you're forced to change is it actually ups the game.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So now we all have to think about, okay, how am I going to continue to be a productive, proactive player in this space and do what I love to do, which is provide access to capital to as many small business entrepreneurs in America. That's my passion. I just love it, right? So how do I do that now better? How do I implement AI and technology? How do I do that and surround myself with like-minded people that want to do that too? And take our game to the next level. I promise you, the teams that are thinking that way now are going to be the ones leading this industry. And I think the players are going to change.
I believe in that too, but going back to, look, there's banks out there that were doing national platforms and now they're doing in footprint. What led to this trend in banks just doing in footprint? If they were doing okay at a national platform, what sparked? I don't understand what sparked the change.
Banks are changing direction. Maybe they're diversifying their product mix and they're adding more products. So SBA is not their only focus if it was in the past, or they're going to continue to offer SBA, but they're focusing on local niche markets, which could be just as productive. And the reality is now with technology, and if you really do implement tools and process efficiently, you don't need as big a manpower team.
You don't. And going back to the focus though, so two of these banks launched national platforms in healthcare. So adding a different product
Mm-hmm.
obviously will add to the bottom line, but there's a shift. So healthcare,
Yeah, makes sense.
right?
Makes sense.
What do they call you? Well, you're the queen of,
Well, I have a couple of titles, but funeral is one.
right?
Yeah, we're in an aging population, right? The silver tsunami's here. We're in it. And it's the largest transfer of wealth in our nation's history. And so the business ownership is around healthcare, death care, child care, human care.
Okay, so what are the five top businesses in your portfolio now, and do you think that they'll continue to grow?
Well, I would say the top industries in SBA have
Right.
remained pretty consistent over the last 25 years. It's been service oriented. So I would say restaurants, limited service restaurants, hospitality, healthcare, childcare, franchise concepts, which is business acquisitions. So those are I would say the top five.
Okay.
And that's pretty broad.
Well, that is pretty broad, but there's also, one of the things that we kind of maybe a little bit talked about in our first episode is, with the business acquisitions with the older generation and now the younger generation coming in and taking over the businesses. So that's probably something that we'll continue to see.
I think so. I mean, look at the post-COVID economy in America, right? And look at our kids. It's
Yeah.
interesting because when I was young, the aspiration was to go work in corporate America and go work for the Big Five or,
When was that? How old were you?
well, I'm,
No, 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 no. How old were you
yeah,
when you decided you
29.
Okay, cool.
No, back when I was in college. When I was in
Okay,
college,
cool.
the aspiration was, or even high school, it was graduate college and then go work for a big corporation.
Fair.
Because they paid well, job security, and you climb the corporate ladder, right? That was the dream. Like
Right.
Working Woman. Remember those movies in the 80s, Working Woman?
Nine to
And
five? Yeah, of course.
yes,
Nine to
that
five.
was
I
Right,
get
that was the dream, right? Like suits. All right. Well, I have to tell you, over the last, I don't know, I would say certainly over the last 5 years, but over the last 10 years, the shift has been to, wait a minute, I can make my own hours, I can make a lot more money, I can have a flexible life and own a business. I'd rather do that than go work for the man and climb the 20-year corporate ladder. I think there's been a shift.
I believe there's been a shift. I mean, I was talking to it was so funny. Kay Anderson, right?
Yeah, I love her. She's the best.
She's awesome. And so she was telling me when she first started, she was hired as the first woman accountant. And all the other women were secretaries. And so obviously, yes, that 100% there's been a shift, but they treated her like she had spots. You know, for example, you know, when she was traveling, they had a man go along with her. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And so obviously, you know, not from the 90s, but it's 100% changed. And so I hope that, you know, obviously it continues to make the shift, make the change, but especially for women in our industry and bridge the gap from leadership positions and help us grow. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. It's a process and it takes time. And I think we have come a long way. We have still a ways to go, just in terms of equality and women in the workforce, and even just cultural thought patterns. That it takes generations for those to change, right? No matter how hard we try and how many government agencies are involved in thought patterns, it's ingrained over generations.
but that goes to a point of where you brought earlier, how we can, well, we were talking about this, I think, in the first episode to bridge that gap and forget all the, you know, what you were saying, like all the regulations and agencies, and go back to the basics of lending, but especially championing more women in our industry and moving them more into leadership spots.
Right. But I also don't believe people should get promoted based on policy. I believe people should I am a merit-based thought leader.
Well, you've opened several SBA shops, and so you're the boss. And so how you recognize talent is just, it is what it is.
Right. It's merit-based.
It's not,
I do believe in old-fashioned American values, which are work hard and the world is your oyster. And if you want it, go out and get it and work for it yourself. I don't believe in uh just like with my kids. Like I don't believe in everybody should get a ribbon. No.
I
No.
agree.
No. No, you don't get a ribbon for showing up. I
No.
believe you work hard and you practice every day and you try your best. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But guess what? I value coming back again and trying again and coming back again, trying harder, working harder, studying more, practicing more. That's what I value. And then you keep doing that over and over and over and over. Then you prove your worth because the results speak for themselves.
Well, right, because you never give up. You know,
It's
there's
hard work.
well,
Hard
it's
work. That's
hard
why,
work though, but it's not a lot of, just not professionals have that drive or have that motivation. So
right. So then back to your initial question, do we need a program called DEI to enforce that?
no, no, but do you think that we need more, well, obviously you said it, more tools on how to execute, you know, going back to the basics of, you know, just reaching those businesses.
So you're telling me you're a merit-based thought leader like I am.
Yeah. But that's what frustrates me in today is that there's not a lot of, not just women, just us out there that go for it.
Yeah. And so we need to promote merit-based opinions and merit-based philosophies. It goes for everything. It goes for employees and entrepreneurs. You're worthy of borrowing money to expand your business when you can show us the fundamentals of the 5 C's of credit, and the banker is worthy of being able to analyze those properly and responsibly. And it's a very responsible exchange of goods and services. That's what this whole country is built on, merit.
I like your philosophy. I like going back to, the basics of just good old fashioned lending with a dash of AI, a dash of experience. And so maybe like most banks will come to, well, I think they're headed in that way. But,
Oh
some of
no.
them are still antiquated and using, Excel and, not there yet, but hopefully they'll get there and we'll continue to see the trend and I don't know, see what happens.
No, I think that we're in a new opportunity growth period in banking. I think there will be new players, there will be new opportunities, new ways of doing business, more efficient and thoughtful access to capital avenues. And I don't think it's gonna, like I said, it can't be the way it's always been done. So I think we're gonna see new players. We're gonna see new players doing it new ways that are responsible, following guidelines. And it's a combination of the back to the basics, but in a new way.
I think we should do a spin-off of Back to the
Of,
Basics.
of what, well, and you know what's interesting? I've thought about this too. Having lent money to thousands of business owners over the years and being privy to a lot of just political meetings and business meetings and all the different points of views over the last 25 years, I'm now at a point where I have some of my own opinions and my own ideas. And maybe it's up to you and I. We are going to be shaping new organizations, and we're going to be paving the way of to how to lend money prudently in this new economy. I'm calling it a new economy because it is that major shift you talked about that silver tsunami and all the baby boomers retiring and the new generation taking over now. We have to build a system around them. How does this next generation, how do our kids want to run businesses? So that's who we need to start thinking about lending money to. And how do we appeal to them? And how do we make sure they're borrowing responsibly and building these amazing US based businesses that are going to continue our American empire?
Yeah, with Mike, I have no idea. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that like what you just said with the platform of that is a fantastic idea of going back to the basics
But
and
in a new way.
yes, and offering banks or like what am I trying to say? You had this
No,
idea. You had this idea. So,
not even offering it to banks, being a leader and doing it as a bank
and,
ourselves.
but using this platform
Yeah.
and taking the message on how do you do that? How would we do that? Now we're
Isn't
going off
it?
the cuff again. It's fine.
But, and you know what? I was talking to you about partnerships and access to capital. This is exactly one of those examples. Women are influencers. Like, we created the influencing space. Let's be honest here. All right. You know why? Because since the beginning of time, women have always had a social network since the beginning of time. All right. And it goes for today. When we buy goods and services, women, first of all, influence 85% of all purchases, men's included. All right. Because if a man wants to do or something, they ask us,
Go out.
we tell them,
House, whatever, whoever.
yeah, what we're buying. Yeah. And whether they admit it or not, we influence 85% of all buying. But guess where women's number one source of information is? It's not the goods and services guide that they give us, and it's not the sales guide that's going to it's our circle of women and trusted women advisors. We ask each other for reviews. We ask each other for information. So if we were going to if we just pull that thread and think about how to provide access to more women entrepreneurs, well, maybe we need to be in the influencing circles because that's where women are going for their information.
How do we get there?
We're doing it right now.
We are?
Yeah.
But no, like so like I know because we talked about platforms and some
Yeah.
other podcasts out there and I don't
Here we go. Like or subscribe and apply button at the bottom of your screen. Like, we're going to help guide you through the process and navigating banker talk. Well, and this, I love that I have your wheels spinning because this is my mission in life. My mission in life is to use fundamentals and do it our way.
I mean if I were no offense, but if I were like we're but that's because we're alike thinkers.
Well, no, because we're constantly thinking about the way business was done is changing. You just said it. All these people are changing, right? Because it doesn't work anymore. The old way doesn't work anymore. We need to be more efficient. We need to be more productive. We need to be more relevant, more thoughtful. I mean, all of the, even just the way we're underwriting loans is the way we underwrote loans 100 years ago. Come on. We need to revert to actual data. I want data on the defaults, why people are defaulting. How do we underwrite to that data?
How do you?
We need access to the data first. Look, all we have are the highlights that they want us to know, right?
Right.
So we need to dig into, that's what every bank in America should be doing if they haven't already, is going through their entire portfolio and really understanding the psychological metrics behind their watch list.
So you're offering so you're bringing 2 points, right? You're talking about what I love, we're two platforms. Speaking to women entrepreneurs, one, and then getting your professional experience on how to guide banks on how to do X, Y, and Z.
And they go hand in
I think
hand.
that could be something. Hold on. I think that could be something.
Yeah.
So how do we formulate? Like, yeah, I'd have to think about that.
All of that goes hand in hand.
But
But
does it though?
yeah, it all goes hand in hand. It's all one big metaverse.
How though? Because like one, you're talking about how we're under. Well, I guess you're right. How we underwrite then leads to lending, and then end result talking to the business owner.
I think that if we were more intelligent with our underwriting parameters based on data, actual data, we would be able to provide more access to capital because it would open up the floodgates.
Well, that's like a whole different podcast.
Well, no, then more women would be able to access capital and we would be able to have intelligent conversations about here's why your business deserves $1 million loan versus $250,000 loan. And here's what your business is going to look like if you infuse this amount of capital into it over the next 3 to 5 years. Like no one is helping.
But how to get that guidance, though, I don't mean to cut you off. Look, that's you. That's Bethany. How do other banks take that advice to help these prospective borrowers? You know what I mean? So what you're saying is it does go hand in hand, but that's your point of view. And it'll be successful. But how do you influence other banks to like even address it or even look at it? I mean, we're using this platform, but still.
Well, I mean, when the internet was introduced, not everyone thought they were going to be needed. They thought it was some people thought it was a fad and they were doing business just fine and they didn't need it. Well, everyone quickly adapted to realizing that there was no way to exist without using the internet.
True.
So I think that's what I'm talking about is this paradigm shift that we're in and the future of banking and the future of entrepreneurship and the new generation now that's taking over these businesses. I love that we're having this conversation because these are the conversations that everyone should be having.
Yeah, I threw my paper up in the air and I'm glad that
You know what though? To wrap a nice bow around this, let's come back to all these conversations that need to be had. Guess who doesn't need to be involved?
Who?
DEI and the government agencies and programs around it. No, we don't want to limit our potential. We want open access to capital, free enterprise. I don't want to have government restrictions on free enterprise. I want merit-based, most eligible person, most qualified person, regardless of any government mandate. I want free capitalism.
Are you like you like when you go to these conferences, it's motivational speaking, right?
No, I just sit there and listen.
Okay.
But I'm taking notes.
But I feel like, again, we were talking about it before, all of the what's out there, they're just focusing on the changes.
Excuses. They're focusing on and distractions. It's distractions and excuses. And we cannot, as Americans, take our eye off the ball. We have to keep our head down and stay focused. And this country was built on access to capital and free enterprise. And if you have a dream, you can pursue it. And I don't want to be labeled, and I don't want to be restricted, and I don't want to be held back. If I have a dream and I want to go do something, you tell me what the rules are and what the access is, and I'll apply. And that's what we need to do. We need to go back to that way of thinking. We need to go back to merit access, full access.
But you're not seeing it out there. No one's mentioning that.
Well, then let's do it.
With
Let's
NAGLE
use
happening,
this.
well, we're gonna do it, but I'm sure pretty much, I know, I think Michael's going to NAGLE, right?
Yeah, he is.
Or I'm pretty sure, like, he could, talk to him about it, but they're not going to mention that. They're not going to mention any of this. They're going to just go through the changes. No one's going to talk about how the changes are going to affect borrowers and how we can keep the trend moving forward, because it's at an all-time high. I bet you. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see when they get
Well, it is every year but I think every year the SBA and banks provide more SBA loans because that is the shift in America. Like we just talked about, the shift in America is small business ownership. There are what's the number now? 37 million small businesses in America? Well, my prediction is we'll have 50 small businesses within the next 24 months.
I hope so, but no, but in addition, like, when you go to the NAGLE, it's more technical, obviously, because it's called technical conference, but I would love to see us come up with a way of promoting back to the basics.
Yeah, and back to the basics and revising those basics to be relevant and current and helping more women get loans. Why is that? How do we change the mindset? And I don't need a government agency to change. That's not changing mindset. When we have a government agency enforcing government mandate, that doesn't change mindset. Maybe that's why change is taking so long, because we're forcing it on people. We need it to evolve organically.
But we also need people who want to take that step, like, and have the guts to do it, unfiltered. So that's what I want to see happen.
I think banks, like you said, banks are making changes. Banks are making changes.
Yeah,
and
but
they'll have their reasons for the change. I would love to know what their strategy and mindset is and information that they've gathered and their data points that they're basing their change of strategy on. But I love to see change. I love it.
I love to see change too, but how you execute it, how you bring your, experience is something I feel like we can provide a platform for. But just how to do it, I just want to show you.
I think there's opportunity, and you're probably going to be busier than you've ever been.
Right now, there's a lot of downsizing, which we mentioned. And so right now on my desk, there's a lot of talent. And so I'm lucky that I could be placing them in different roles. And, hopefully the trend will stop. it'll stabilize, and then I could just go back to my old ways of just poking people. You know what I mean? Now it's just, people are available, and it stinks.
Interesting. So there are a lot of good people available right now?
100%. Yeah, anything from, you
Hmm.
know, like I said too, I love back office, and I've gotten phone calls from BDOs that, that were downsized because of production. And in their minds, they are talking about a tightening credit box, how underwriting is slow. But I spent 20 minutes on the phone with a BDO telling me what he wants. And I'm saying, dude, stop, because that's what I hate. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Excuses,
Yeah,
because of this, because of that. That's why I don't do it. I don't want to deal with BDOs. I want to deal with productive people.
I don't blame you.
That's why I stick to the back. That's why I stick to the back office. Unless I know them, I'm not doing it. That's not what I want. But that's been
It's interesting because I have my own, opinion on the roles. I think the roles are changing. They're changing. People are holding on so tight because they want to keep doing what they've always done. And the roles are changing. I think the BDO role has already changed. And so the old BDOs that are holding on so tight, it's because they're refusing to acknowledge their role has changed.
well. So what I see most, it's funny. They'll send me a pipeline of what they closed last year, but also what they, put out
Yeah,
because
they're what got declined.
yeah. And I've been doing this a long time. I'm pretty sure like 50% of it you cut.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to waste my time. I'm a big person about not doing it, and just, yeah, it was like so painful talking to that person. I don't want to do it.
Well, I mean, look at the trend right now with banks letting go of BDOs and a lot of these positions. Hey, HR better be careful too, because AI is coming for them.
That,
But
you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're
And
right.
a lot of these positions are being reduced.
Yeah. But I still think you need the that the personal touch, but the BDOs that um basically, like you said, the roles change. So you have your hunter, right?
Yeah.
That will cold call and probably will be the most successful. And you have others that rely on brokers and internal referrals. Those those BDOs should be worried.
Yeah. 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 Because now in the fintech era, yeah, banks have their own marketing and sales platforms through
Yeah.
digital application.
Yeah. And so basically the role of the BDO is changing and going out and cold calling. Back
Yeah.
to the basics.
Yeah. But and even the cold calling, the direct to borrower, like we just talked about, if banks really engage in fintech tools, that's where they can go direct to borrower.
They can. I mean, and so hopefully I mean, brokers will probably be not non-existent, but cut the fat, maybe, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I mean, don't you think? I mean,
I
you think,
think the fat to be cut is BDOs.
what do you think about the need for a broker?
Brokers will exist. And I think brokers are on the rise.
Hmm.
It's a supply and demand thing. It's interesting because I was just thinking about this walking these shows. Like I'm going to 3 trade shows now, back to back. So trade shows are back. And they're in full force and they're packed and everyone's exhibiting at these things. Most trade shows are sold out. So it's interesting. Everyone's back on the road, right? But you walk these trade show floors, and it used to be industry shows. There would be myself and maybe 2 or 3 other banks, and then it was other industry vendors and then borrowers. Now you walk the floor, and the shows I'm going to this week. I looked at the attendees. There are literally, I think, 60 banks.
Oh, yeah, that's why I went to an IBBA show,
Yeah,
and I was the only, well, now I'm sharing trade secrets, but I was the only recruiter there.
that's awesome.
Like 20 million lenders there. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. So think about look at all the lenders there. Remember back in the day, there were maybe 5, 10 lenders, and now there are 60 lenders.
Yeah, they're all
And
like,
guess there are 60 lenders and now only 10 brokers. It used to be the other way around.
Yeah, now, yeah, it was, and that was, shoot, that was a year and a half ago, but
Wow.
yeah, I should have done that. I should have, but wait, if I wanted to be a BDO recruiter like that, I could probably go to one, but no, I can't.
BDO recruiter?
Yeah, because like, well, who's attending these trade shows? The BDOs.
Yeah. But like you said, though, I mean, I don't know very many banks who need 100 BDOs anymore.
They don't. But also, I
Right.
feel like recruiting purposes, how do you know, are they good? Are they not good? It's oversaturated. It's an oversaturated market.
So if you look at who's needed now in this whole access to capital and being able to be in all the nooks and crannies of this country, it's the brokers. Brokers are in all the markets, have their local presence, work with their local communities. They're the ones that are the partners that we need to access these borrowers.
That's one platform. So there we go. So now we can go back to a podcast, bring on a broker.
That would be amazing.
I don't know any good brokers.
I know some, and you know what? They're so busy that it would be amazing if they had time for us. They're so busy right now, and they have every bank in America calling on them.
Right. And so that's one. We could bring along Bethany to do, the question of how, more focused on women business and getting those statistics and getting that information. So I think that I don't know, Steph, I think we should probably talk about this.
Let's keep doing it. I love it.
I don't know.
Okay, I love that I shifted your perspective on DEI.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and you know what I really love? I love the topic of what the future looks like. I love that topic because that shapes everything you and I do in our day jobs.
But that's so broad.
Well, no, we could narrow it down to what the future looks like you just said, in hiring, in staffing, in training, and what the future is going to look like in what we do and how to stay relevant to small business owners. Like, honestly, small business owners are on the move and they're going faster than we are. And they're a lot more technologically advanced than we are. And they're very impatient. That's the big topic right now. You know what? People in America are impatient. When I go to Chick-fil-A and they tell me to pull over to the side, I'm so annoyed to wait for my food. I'm like, I just did that this weekend with my kids and I pulled over to the side and it literally was like 7 minutes and I was boiling.
But not, but again, though, not everybody's to recognize that and to motivate people. I mean, that's kind of like what we need to kind of talk about.
That's our biggest challenge in America. In America, our biggest challenge is we've identified that we're impatient. We've identified that we need to keep up our economy and we need to keep up our productivity. And the government now is focused on made in America and bringing our economy back and making everything here in our country, right? Well, we need an entire workforce to have a sense of urgency. Everyone from the top all the way down, right? Like the golf outings are over.
That's a whole other topic.
I know. Well, and it all ties into access to capital. Yeah, you know how we provide more access to women who are very impatient people like myself? Faster, better, smarter, faster, better. Like that's how we have to all be thinking that way. And I certainly don't need a government mandate to make me faster, better, smarter. No. We need to do that on our own accord, and we need to take initiative from the top all the way down. And it comes from your area of expertise, manpower.
But it also comes from how we execute that in what we're doing.
So I think the banking industry as a whole has not kept up with the expectation of a female borrower. Isn't that an interesting perspective?
Thanks for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much. You're the best.